just thinking about it. and we are live. We are live. Definitely, we are live. And I am back in the UK, and it's lovely to see everybody and to see you both after a month. Well, yeah, no. Well, I mean, of course, it is a month. I just haven't been in the UK for a little while. I just went to visit, and I can't say sunnier climes. Normally we go sunnier climes, but actually in the UK,
that's sunnier than here right now, aren't there?
Yeah.
Well, yeah, absolutely. But hey, here we are for another staying human under pressure, which over the last 6 months we've been on quite a journey between the three of us, because we began recognizing what pressure does to us, how it narrows our perspective, and how we can still be like basically still standing, but no longer feel grounded. But how we can drift, often without actually even realizing it. And then over the last couple of months, we've explored how we find our way back. And this idea of noticing without judging, coming back to ourselves, although I would say, actually, we just cleared the noise to realize ourselves that was under the
yeah, that sort of implies that our self went somewhere, and then
it does, doesn't it? And yeah, actually, usually it's just the noise that got in the way.
Yeah. We were there all along.
Yeah, absolutely. Just if only we hadn't got all this noise and we could just hear ourselves think. But tonight is like the next step, because now we found ourselves again, or actually realized where we were standing in the first place underneath all the noise. And so how do we remain human ourselves under all that pressure? And perhaps, and then the theme for tonight, what deserves our attention? Because, it's really hard in this noisy world. And I remember very vividly, and ironically, I was very sadly at a funeral today, and I had this conversation with somebody today about how just in certain moments there was so much noise, and yet if we can just clear it back, but how do we make that certain that we can ensure that we are giving the attention to the things that actually really matter, and really matter to us, not matter to everybody else? Because every single day we get pulled in all sorts of directions, emails, messages, requirements from sisters, brothers, in my case, to could I just help them out? But yeah, I mean, so I don't know. So what has our attention? I'm going to throw it to you guys. Lovely
well, these days, our attention gets pulled in all sorts of directions, doesn't it? As you alluded to there, Laura. And it's really difficult, isn't it, to give things our proper focus. And attention's so important, isn't it? And I think this is a Tony Robbins phrase, but where attention goes, energy flows, right? And in my experience, that feels true to me, because what you look at, you get more of. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah. It's the phrase that I said earlier on. It's like what you focus on grows, and that works both ways. It works whether it's negative, it works whether it's positive.
Yeah, and that's why we've got to be really deliberate and intentional with where we put our focus and attention, because we have a finite amount of time in the way we've constructed it. So therefore, we spend our time using our attention, don't we? That's how we spend time as a commodity. So it's really important what we give our attention to, because one, we're going to get more of it. Two, it determines how we spend our time. So the question, what deserves our attention? What really matters? What really matters to us? When anybody comes to work with me one-on-one, the first bit of work we do is core values. And for me, that is, what do you really care about and why? And the core values, we boil it down to, we come up with 5 in the end. I take through a 3-step process. It's NLP work. And that's ways of feeling. So they're emotional values, they're ends values. They're not means values like family or my job or the things that are important to me. It's how those things make us feel, because that's what being is, Laura, isn't it? It's feeling. That's how we're interpreting the world around us. Whilst this isn't engaging, by feeling, right? And so what I know and understand is we are all chasing ways of feeling. So when we know what the ways of feeling are that we are looking for, we then can work backwards and go, right, if I put my attention on this, how's that going to make me feel? Is that going to tick my core values, whether that's contentment, satisfaction, freedom, fulfillment, all these lovely ways of feeling that we're looking for? And if not, then it doesn't deserve our attention. So it's what's really, really, really important to us. What are our priorities? Because they're not other people's priorities. They're not our boss's priorities. They're not our family's priorities. They're ours. They're very unique and they belong to us. And the only person that can direct your attention on the things that really matter is you.
And I think that's it. And Mark, I'm going to ask you your thoughts, because there's part of me that goes, and I, I have this view that unless we know what we're about, what matters most to us, then we are at the mercy of basically anybody else and anybody else's perspectives. But I guess it's like, well, that's, how easy is that? I mean, that's not easy to do.
No, not at all. But it's a critical starting point. It really is a critical starting point. Like if you think of it, for example, if you want to buy a house, and so you're like, I've got a budget of 500,000 to buy a house. So I started looking at houses for 500,000. You have a lot of houses to look at. What do you need? Do you need a house with 3 bedrooms or 4 bedrooms? Does it need to be close to a train station? Does it need to be within walking distance of a school? Does it need to have a kitchen? Does it need to have space? Does it need to be, detached, semi-detached? What does it need? So once you define all of those kind of things, then you're beginning to look for what you want. So you're narrowing that focus. And that's really critical because we don't do that enough. And so it's vital to understand ourselves a little bit better, what's around us. But then it takes real work and discipline to get up in the morning and go, oh, well, you know what? What's important to me? Where's my focus going to be right now? And to actually ask ourselves the question, because it takes time to go, God, what am I doing? Why am I doing that? What am I doing this for? Like, why did I get myself over here? What's my focus right now? And that's my brain all the time. Like, I'll be sending an email to one person, and the next thing I'm writing a post. I'm like, how did I get here? What am I doing? What was I wasn't doing this a minute ago. Like, or I'm gardening. Like, how did that happen? Right? But because there's not that focus, not attention. And I spoke today about paying attention, and I realized, because I'm not paying that attention, so the brain is switching from the next thing to the next thing to the next thing because it's not paying that attention. And if you don't set out your stall for what I'm going to do, what I can do, how can I pay attention? Like I'll give you an example of a client to work with at the moment, and he's running his own business, and he came to me because he was insanely busy. He was only 3 months into the business, doing brilliantly. Like in what he does, it's very niche kind of architectural design around scaffolding, right? It's very niche, but it's very useful. A lot of people need this kind of thing that he does. He was working for a company, started working for himself, but he only knew how to work really busy. He only knew how to be busy. He didn't know how to be structured or sensible. And suddenly we've just come to focus, right? This is my client. This is today. This is all I can do. Somebody rings, not today, you're tomorrow, you're next day, you're after. He has it all scheduled. So his focus is like this. And then when he dives into the session, like he was stressed and under pressure all the time. And now he's like, hey, great week, yeah, things are going good. Why? Because he has a focus, because he can clearly see, what am I trying to teach you that? So to Dan's point, the values, what is important to us is key. But how do we then live that morning, afternoon, evening? How do we get that to be the focus in each and every time? Because that's the really hard part. And
you're absolutely right. And so how do we do that then, Mark?
Oh, how do you do it? Oh, we don't. It's impossible. Look at my example.
So I guess that's the $1 million question, isn't it?
So we need that structure. Like we need to know. So what is my day about today? What do I want to achieve today? we need to talk to ourselves a little bit better, a little bit clearer, you know. Okay, what do I want to achieve today? Like, you know, I'm going on holidays from Saturday next week. I'm going away for about 2.5 weeks. And I will have no social media, I'll switch all that other stuff. And I know there's stuff I need to close out and stuff I want to start doing. And in order to do that, I need to clear out of my space all the things. Hence, I delete the social media from my phone. I need to clear it out of my space. Because if it's in my space, it will attract me and I will be attracted. So that's how we start, is to clear out the stuff that's not necessary. And my intention, dog is going mad over the
He's not liking this clearing out business.
I've blocked the doors so you can't get in.
Like, it's not being clear. Sorry, I can't remember whether it's a girl or a boy. Sorry.
So
it's just worried that it's not being cleared out in the same process.
She's actually
so perfect. We've got this distraction while we're talking about how to not be distracted.
She's the perfect example of attention, right? So I want your attention right now. That's what everything else does for us, because it's in our vicinity. You know, if the dog isn't there, I don't have to give it any attention because it's not there. I'm not paying attention to it. It's making sure I'm aware of it for attention. So, and I know that's for me. I have to clear away all the stuff that's not necessary. I have to clear down my inboxes before I go. So I'm not going in there seeing there's 70 emails and I have to go through them. I want a clear space and a clear headspace so I can focus. I'm going to have to open this door. But yes.
And to pick up on Mark's
so meanwhile, while Mark goes rescues the dog,
it's being deliberate and intentional, isn't it?
Yeah.
It's you know, it's understanding that in order to give things our full attention and our full focus, we have to carve out time and be really intentional about what we're going to do with our attention and with our focus, and be really disciplined as well, because carrying these things around, they always want our attention in one way, shape or form. And as Mark was saying there about suddenly finds himself gardening, the amount of times I'll suddenly find myself knee deep in emails going, how did I get here? Like, oh, I picked it up because there was a reminder that I had something to do in an hour.
Popped up and told you.
While I was there, this thing was like ping, ping. And before I know it, half an hour of my day is gone. And what have I done? Nothing, because I'm just staring at this thing. And so you have to be disciplined. You know, if you're going to set an hour aside to focus your attention on something important, switch it off, put it away, turn the notifications off, and all the other things, you know, shut the dog outside, all the other things that you need to do in order that you're not going to be distracted. It's about living by design and not by default, you know, not just letting things happen to you, but having an idea of, right, at this time, this is what gets my attention. At this time, this is what gets my attention. You know, like when having family time, so many of us find it hard now to sit at a table and just be with our family without phones going off and TVs going off and the kids are in that room and we're in this room. And it's like, can we just sit down for an hour, zero distractions, and actually talk to each other and look each other in the eye? Because that's important, right?
Totally important.
Going, oh, I wish I'd taken more work calls during dinner time. No, you're going to sit on your deathbed and I wish I'd had more conversations with my kids and connected with them, or with my partner, or whoever, you know, whoever else is in and around you. These are the things that really matter. These are the things we really want to do. And the key to it all is presence. If we're stuck up here and not really here, then things aren't getting our attention. We're not present in the moment, being instead of doing, thinking, having.
And it, you know, it's hard to be present, I think, and I think sometimes pressure just literally narrows our perspective. So, you know, all we see is this. We don't see the wider world. I mean, I have a very different world to both you and Mark, because I don't have kids, don't have a partner. So my challenge is I have a myriad of other people in my world who I care very deeply about, who can suddenly find they are in my space, and it's very hard because they don't get my world, because my world is different. And I think that's true of a lot of people, where, you know, how how do we hold those boundaries where, which boundaries is a word that I only really grasped in more recent years, because I think what it is actually recognize what matters most to us and then going, I stand for that. That's really what a boundary is. And that's really challenging, because, it's too easy for, today, prime example, I'm getting ready for, sadly, you said funeral. Suddenly my niece turns up on the doorstep. Oh, hello. Wasn't expecting you. It's 10:20. Oh, I need to get changed. I decided to walk from my friend's house the other side of town. Can I get changed here? Well, yeah, that's fine. And so it's not, love her dearly. It's fabulous that she's just dropped in and wants to come here and help out. But it's very easy for those situations to suddenly take our attention away, where that's I have no control over that whatsoever. I genuinely don't. I genuinely didn't know she was rocking up. I thought I was walking to said Commonwealth funeral this morning, and I think there's a lot of people out there who are not in too dissimilar situations to me. Then you throw in like where you do have commitments because you've got children, you've got partners, etc. And that's like this giant washing machine of things that are pulling us in all sorts of directions for our attention. I don't know. How do we remain grounded in knowing what our attention is? Oh.
I think the boundaries point is very interesting for a start. And the boundaries for us are what are us managing other people's expectations of us as well.
Yeah.
Because for a lot of things, like people have, I always think of this lady I was working with years ago now. God, it must have been about 4 years ago. She was about 70 and she was trying to retire. She was semi-retired. Shut up, dog. Jesus Christ. And she was semi-retired.
If only dogs could speak, eh?
It's so good that this is happening on a live called What Deserves Our Attention. It's just the universe is
just like you prepped her, haven't you, Mark? You prepped her on this.
No, I think my daughter not walking. I mean, she's a bit frustrated and full of energy. But it's like this lady. She wanted her own space. But anytime she was working half the week, and anytime she was off, her kids would say, "Oh, can you mind my kids?" They would expect her to do that because she wasn't working. And it was really hard for her to say, I'm not doing that because I need to put myself first. And it's that selfishness that we need to actually adapt. But it's not selfish, it's self-care. It's looking after ourselves in the best way so that we can actually begin to do the thing we want to do. Because to Dan's point about, you won't be sitting on your deathbed wishing you had taking more work calls at the dinner table, right? But by the same token, you won't be sitting at your deathbed glad you didn't go on that adventure you always wanted to go on. You won't be sitting in on your deathbed and glad you didn't set your own boundaries and stand up for yourself and live your life the way you needed to do, So there's a hard part in that, for how we bring it to that focus. But I think too, it's easy to be caught up in all the rest of that's going on, and lose ourselves in the process because we feel, it's nice to feel needed, it's nice to feel wanted, it's nice to feel you can do these things. And while maybe our situations are different, we all have responsibilities though, But sometimes to say I have responsibilities is an excuse. And we have to be very careful of using responsibilities as an excuse, because we have a responsibility to ourselves as well in all of this. And that's a hard little thing to get over too. And again, it's putting ourselves first, because that's my responsibility rather than I have responsibilities. It's a bit like the whole I am busy, therefore I'm excused for everything because I'm busy with work, But it's not, it's excuse. It's excuse, and it's an excuse to ourselves. Do we want to, again, be on that deathbed with, oh, well, I had responsibilities, therefore I couldn't live my life. Or, I lived my life and I met the responsibilities that mattered.
And I think, one of the things that's going through my head with your example, of being selfish, being self-care, because I have been told that I am selfish because I, want to do things particularly. But I've actually come to terms with this because I see it as a lot of the time that the terrain I navigate on a daily basis, because I'm on my own, the only person per se I have responsibility for and towards is myself and who I choose to. But actually it's harder to go, no, actually I can't do that, because if I do that, then I'm just going to be exhausted or whatever else, and I can't do X, Y, and Z. But it's because often others are making comment based on their specific circumstances. So it's their lens of the world, and therefore they evaluate me. And I think this is one of the things that I have had to have real conversations with myself of going, yeah, but that's fine when, in my sister's case, you've got a high-powered job and 4 kids, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. But when you are single, no kids, live on your own, there are 2 very different terrains to be navigating. So you can't judge one and the other than just acknowledge each other's different realities and accept that what therefore deserves our attention in both of those 2 situations is going to be very, very different. And therefore I wonder whether some of the stress that we put on ourselves is because we are trying to live up to someone else's reality rather than acknowledging that, no, look, look, yes, I did some work while I was on holiday, and people said to me, oh, you'd be on holiday, why are you working? No, because if I did a little bit each day, actually that's cool with me. It's not because I'm trying to set an expectation that makes everybody else feel bad. It's just that actually when I come home, there is no one else to carry on, another part of what I have to carry on. So, if I am not present, back to your point, Dan, if I am not present, then there is no one else to step into that space.
Yeah. And that just, it works for you, Laura, doesn't it? And this is
absolutely.
We all need to work out what works for us, what deserves that question is our attention, not what somebody else said we should put our attention on. What deserves our attention, not what are other people putting their attention on. What deserves our attention, what really matters to us, what's really important to us. That's unique to every individual. There are 2 people who live in my house and a dog, and all 3 of us will have different idea of what we want to put our attention on. Mainly for Lady, it's food, or what she thinks might be food, and her eat first, ask questions later policy, which doesn't always work out well. And sometimes when she's done that, the dog needs our attention, right? And probably rush into the nearest emergency vet to get whatever she's just eaten pumped out of her stomach. And it varies from moment to moment. And it's all right for me to sit here and say, yeah, let's be deliberate, carve out time, turn off distractions. Life doesn't always work like that, and sometimes life chucks in a curveball, and it's got to get your attention. That needs your attention. Whatever is happening right there, right now, probably needs your attention. So we need to be flexible and as well as disciplined. And this is the paradox of life, right? How can we be flexible and disciplined? And how can I have structure and flexibility? Well, you can. And without the structure, you can't have the flexibility because you're all over the flipping show. Yeah. So it's got to start with good intentions. Carve out time for the things that really matter, whether, that's date nights with your partner or spending time with your family or being part of a local community, all those things, the things that light us up, the things that make life worth living, what it's all about for us, that stuff deserves our attention. And therefore, as Mark was talking about in his content today earlier about paying attention. You know, we are, if we don't give the things we want to give our attention, we're going to be paying attention to something else. And you know, that treat time like money, right? Be really careful and really clear about what you do with it. And be whatever it is you're doing, make sure it does get your full attention. Be present, be there, give it everything you've got. Don't be thinking about the meeting you messed up earlier on, or that bad conversation you had with your boss, or something else that doesn't exist anymore and doesn't really matter. And I think there needs to be a bit of self-reflection and a bit of contemplation up front to ask yourself that question: what really does deserve my attention? Not this, not this, not this, not this, and not this, not Netflix, not YouTube, not all that stuff where we while away hours of our days. What we here and now, the people with me, the environment I'm in, what I'm doing now, that's what deserves my attention.
And I mean, there's so many things I could say to that. I mean, I think, you know, it's only when we don't have structure in our worlds that we suddenly realize actually how structured life actually is, that we don't realize it. You know, from the moment that, you know, we have kids to get to school, that we've got a job to get to for 9 o'clock, we've got this and this. Actually, life is really structured. And then if you suddenly don't have it, like, actually have to build it. But how do you build that structure, and how do you build it in a way that is meaningful to us? And I think, you know, I'm going to push slightly on your comment about, you know, Netflix, etc. But actually, sometimes I think allowing ourselves the flexibility of just allowing a a to absorb us is actually very good for us to recognize.
Intentional, Laura. You know, I say that I've been watching a series on Netflix recently. There's a new Harlan Coben thing out, the American series, and I love Harlan Coben as an author. He's brilliant, and I love how they make great telly. So I do sit and binge Netflix series, but I deliberately and intentionally, and I'm carving out time to do that, and it's time with my wife. Nothing else gets my attention when I'm doing that. If you WhatsApp me when I'm watching Harlan Coben, you ain't getting a reply. Sorry.
I'll remember that.
You watch it tonight, Dan. I'm going to try. but I think that's a really important point, that it's fine to do whatever you're doing as long as you've chosen to do it. That's the key. It has to be a conscious choice, because so much of our time is whiled away unconsciously. Again, back to the phone thing, unconsciously doing or just finding ourselves in a space. Like, even, you know, I worked with someone who was trying to lose weight there a while ago, and they were like, "Oh, I want to eat this." I said, "Then do, but decide you're going to eat it. Don't eat it and feel guilty afterwards for eating it. Decide, I'm going to eat this thing, and then eat this bloody thing, and then you don't." The guilt is a different thing, and that's what then suddenly we have remorse and we have all these other feelings that are completely unnecessary. Where if we've made the decision and we've accepted the cost, it's going to cost me an hour to do this. I met a guy, a Palestinian fella in Spain. Oh Jesus, this is 27 years ago, maybe. It was. I won't give you the origin story. It's too odd and too long, right? But he everything he did, he would buy a bottle of Heineken and he would measure it. His job was to cut shawarma, you know, like the meat. That's what he did for a living. So he measured it by. So I had to cut shawarma for an hour to purchase this bottle of beer. So everything he was able to value everything. So he's like, "Oh, you could rent this like small dinghy to go out and think that's a whole day's worth of cutting shawarma. That's not worth a whole day, you know." And it was such an interesting measure for everything that he had, you know. So he knew he was not wasting his money, because his money had a time value all the time with everything that he did. I always found that a fascinating way to measure your world, because it's very hard for us. We don't do it to that extent, you know, because maybe we can't measure our life by hours like that. But, you know, maybe we do need to get that particular about it if we're trying to focus on something. Like, so if I go on my phone for an hour, then that's going to cost me an hour of business development, an hour of exercise, an hour of whatever it's going to cost. Am I happy to pay? Yes, I am. Okay, good. Now I do this.
It's that thing of opportunity cost. You know, what are we taking this for in relation to that, and are we happy with that trade-off? And I don't think many people really see it like this sort of two things and this opportunity cost decision. I just think we get too drawn into the noise, into I haven't got time, and then we suddenly go, okay, well, how do I then ended up here? And I think there always, and when we are under pressure, especially our capacity to think, and it came up in conversation yesterday. I delivered another one of my NHS patient partner and NHS conversations. And again, it came, but what happens when under pressure we have limited bandwidth to think rationally? So, one of the examples was it's Friday evening and suddenly something's gone wrong and your health isn't very well, or very good. And, all you can think about that, you can't think rationally. The only thing that has your attention is that you need to see a doctor. And so you then get stressed with the receptionist. The receptionist then is not very happy because she's getting, the full frontal of the irritated patient. And, the conversation was going, well, actually, a pharmacist can deliver actually what a GP can do in many, many ways. But it was the whole conversation about how suddenly under immense pressure, you've lost this bandwidth to think per se rationally, and that your attention is on something that feels really important, but is it important or is it urgent? And how in that moment do we define,
But it's really tough, isn't it, in a moment like that when it's all consuming, and as somebody who doesn't feel well, or somebody who's with somebody who doesn't feel well, and you're there in accident and emergency. I remember the last time I took Julie there, and she had appendicitis. We didn't know at the time, but of course the trouble is you can't sit there quietly in agony. I had to keep going and shouting at the woman at the reception because nothing was happening. I had to keep going and saying, look, my wife is in absolute agony. She is not the sort of person, she has a high pain threshold. She is not a complainer. She needs to be seen now. And I didn't give a shit what that woman had on her plate, what other things were going on. All I cared about was my wife needs to be seen now. For me, that was important and urgent, and it had totally consumed my attention. I didn't know who else was in the place. I didn't know who might have been in there before us. I didn't know whether there was a queue. I didn't know whether they had enough doctors there. That didn't concern me. My attention, my focus is what was just on what I needed to happen and what I needed to get done. Now, perhaps if I could have zoomed out a bit or taken a breath or had a beat, I could have approached it better. I may not have shouted in this woman's face, and I may have understood there's lots of competing things going on. But there and then, for me, that was everything. That was urgent. That had my attention, and that's what I needed to get done. And I think, when what you're talking about there in terms of opportunity and cost, one of the things I learned a few years ago is that every time I say yes to something, I say no to something else. So when I'm committing my focus and attention to something, my intent, my aim, my endeavor is to be aware of what I'm saying no to, and in the way that Mark's Palestinian friend weighed everything up in terms of his time into how much shawarma he had to cut. I use my core values in that way, and I think, right, if I'm saying yes to this, which means I'm saying no to that, is that given my core values, is that a decision I want to make? And I also like to weigh things up in terms of importance and urgency. And when things come, when I get a message or something happens, when I'm in the middle of something else, I give it a score. I just go 10 out of 10. Is that important? Out of 10, is that urgent? If the score's high, then I may well park what I'm doing and give that my attention there and then. If the score's low, it doesn't get my attention. The other thing I like doing is act or schedule. So something comes in, it's going to take me 2 minutes, something comes across my path, someone asks me for something cool. If it's going to take 2 minutes, I do it. If I'm not going to, I schedule it. And because then that's still it probably is going to deserve my attention at some point. It needs me to say yes to it at some point, just not here and now, because it's not important and it's not urgent and my attention is on something else. And that's kind, you know, if you want to be really deliberate and intentional about what you're doing, you've always got to realize that when you're focusing on that, you're not focusing on that, and you're not focusing on that. And is that what you want to do?
No, and it makes, you know, it absolutely makes tons of, you know, sense. I mean, I endeavor to do it, but it doesn't always work.
No, it doesn't. Of course it doesn't. And we're human. And, you know, of course, I get distracted all the time. And like I said to you earlier on, many a time. And I'll be sat there having set out an hour, right? I'm going to do some deep work. I'm going to fix this. Or I'm going to create some content. And I'll be 45 minutes in and I'm suddenly, oh, no, what am I doing? I'm in there having a chat in my WhatsApp group. Oops. Yeah, like, I'm not there. Why did that happen? It's, you know, none of this is easy, and I'm not saying I've got all the answers.
But I think you're right. None of it is easy. It's about being conscious about it. No, I mean, it's back to choice, isn't it, Mark?
Back to choice, and how do we make the unconscious conscious? How do we get it front of mind? So there's a lot of different ways we can do that. Like, do you write out even before? Do you write out 3 lines? Tomorrow's intention is this, this, and this, right? So when you wake up in the morning, the first thing you read is this, right? So you focus, that's where my focus goes straight away, rather than, you know, oh, I get up and I see how things go and I fall into the day or whatever, right? Some people get up and they repeat a mantra, today I am, whatever that is. To go back to that lady I was speaking about, right? And she had the best way for getting her focus and attention to what she wanted. So she told me when we finished working together that she was going to do something that was going to represent her newfound freedom, her freedom to choose to do stuff for herself. And then I got a text from her the next day, and it was like, I've got a role in a play. And I thought, that's fucking brilliant. To role in a play, fair play. She goes, but that's not it. That's just something I'm doing. She said, I'll send you a picture next week. I said, okay. So then the following week, I got a picture, and it was a picture of the inside of her arm, and she had got a tattoo the whole way up the inside of her arm. And none of her family had tattoos, like none of her children, none of her grandchildren had tattoos. And she said that every single time she looks down, the tattoo represents to her that she is free to choose. She is always free to choose. So she has, now it's an extreme thing if you want to go down that way, right? But it's an extreme. So every time she's thinking about something in her head is like, oh, I should, and what about them? And I'm free to choose. I'm free to choose. And it's nearly like it becomes, the tattoo has become a representative of a mantra, because that's the thing. How do we get our focus back all the time? And sometimes we need something drastic. Like, you know, I know people and they've stuff pinned on the wall. Like, what are you focused on right now? Is this what you need to be focused on? So because you need to keep on snapping. That thinking brain is off on its own little journeys. No, actually, you're gone again. Like, come back, you know. Electric shock treatment might work for me sometimes, you know, but like, you know, but you see what I'm getting at. There needs to be a way, because if we don't have that discipline and we trust that, oh, I'll just magically find the discipline. No, we need a system. We need to build something around it. Like Dan spoke lovely there about actor schedule, right? So this fits in nicely, you know. So we need a system that allows us to just course correct all the time, until we don't need to course correct. We begin to build a life that this is actually what I want. And then we're able to say yes and no to the things that matter much more easily, because we've built that as a habit. We've built that as a way of being and how we are.
And I think that's it, isn't it, Mark? It's like there's always going to be pressure competing for our attention. There's always going to be another email, another notification, another problem to solve, blah, blah, blah. You know, if we want to remain human in this world, you know, it's not about eliminating those things and pretending that they don't happen. It's becoming about more intention about where we place our attention. And so I guess it just leaves us to do like the full circle and go, you know, maybe the question is as simple as asking ourselves continually, you know, what deserves our attention? Because maybe that actually might shape what we do better than just allowing ourselves to get absorbed by the noise and reacting to the noise. Well, as ever, folks, conscious that, you know, amazingly 40 minutes is almost disappeared so quickly. We could probably carry on talking for an awful lot longer. But as ever, lovely to see you. Any last thoughts to share?
Well, I'm just going to echo what you said there. You know, the what deserves our attention. Just ask yourself that question and do it regularly. When your focus has been stolen, you've been distracted, something, does this deserve my attention?
Yeah, I agree.
I'm going to get a tattoo, and also, though, I've spent kind of last night and this morning. My father started a family tree when he was very ill with cancer, and he never got to finish it. But my uncle took it upon himself to finish it, and then myself and my wife actually put this whole big thing together. It's a marvelous book, right? But my uncle has gone on and done 3 or 4 other ones since, and he asked me 2 months ago to write a thing about my gran, about his mother. You know, he said, "Look, you're a good writer. You write something about it because I want to do another book, right?" And I was too busy, and I couldn't get the attention and the focus. And for the last couple of days, I've just been sitting with these books and reading these stories of my gran from her children's perspective, like, you know, my uncles and aunts' perspective. Unbelievable stories that I've never heard before, right? Because I never actually went through all the books, trying to piece a place to find it together for her, right? And it made me realize, and Dan, what you were saying there about, like, on your deathbed, and that thing is that's a really mind-focusing thing, you know? I've loads of stuff that I want to do, bigger things, but I spend too much time doing small things that aren't adding any real value to anything at all. And so I'm going to set my intention when I take my break to find, what do I need to remove from my life in order to add some time and capacity for do these bigger things that I want to be able to say, I'm glad I did that. Because I'm not glad I spent another hour on Instagram, another half an hour on the WhatsApp group talking about the fact that Argentina beat England, which is great. But I want to do that. I want to do something that matters to me, something that I can actually have a bit of pride in and be proud of, you know? So for me, that's it. And keeping that focus on that, you know, what do I want by the end? Well, you know what? Let's bring that back to now. So what do I need to do now so that by the end, I can be happy with what I did now?
And that so, you know, regret is, you know, the worst. We don't want to regret anything. So the only moment is now, and therefore right in this moment, what deserves our attention. Well, folks, thank you. I'm going to just quickly show this comment that's just popped in. I don't know who it is from, but I think it is a fair comment before we go. So thank you for tuning in. But yeah, we're taking August off, so that dog is definitely trying to get your attention. But yeah, by September we'll be back for more conversations, and I will allow you to. I mean, she's very cute. I mean, what's not to love?
No.
So on that note, I'm going to love you and leave you all, and chat soon.
Please all.